Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis. Welcome to today's video as my voice breaks. Today is going to be the start of a brand new hobby series where I'm going to be documenting the progress of my High and Dark Elf armies for Age of Sigmar. I kind of wanted to do this. I did a little hobby update at the back end of last year where I sort of showed off what I was doing and where I was going to go next, but I've had a bit of a change of heart, and I thought the best way to show you what's going on with the army, because I can't play games with it all that often, is to, well, document the painting as I go, kind of like Kieran does for A New Age. Now, I do not have a title for this series yet. The title of this video is just my working title until I or you come up with something better. And I really do hope that you can come up with a better working title than, as it is on this video, an Aelfen adventure, because it just, oh my days, it's so bad. So we're going to have a look at what I'm doing at the moment for my Dark Elves. I've decided to go dark for the start of the year instead of high, but I will be addressing that balance a little bit later on. So let's start with the Dark Elves, and let's document how we get started on this, our first Aelfen adventure. Starting us off, we have 5 witch elves led by a death hag. There are actually 5 more witch elves, but they're still under construction and undergoing painting, so I'm not going to include them in this video. The box does include 10. This kit is brilliant. The witch elves kit is such an intuitive, easy build and paint because the legs and body are all one component, which makes your life so much easier. You don't have any posing of torsos. They do it for you. The one drawback to that is that every body has a matched up set of arms and heads. No head will go on any other body. They're slightly different shapes in the mount. So if I get this one, for example, she's got the triangular head mount, and only one head will fit on that body, which is annoying. But it has to do that, because if it doesn't, then certain weapons will not fit on certain models. For example, this girl, no other head will actually go on her because she's got the only hair that will fit around that knife. So it's annoying, and if you want to have large squads, variety is going to be an issue, kind of like with the Sisters of Avalon, but they are a fantastic, easy build. One piece of advice, don't glue the heads on. Paint the heads off the bodies. Everything else you can actually glue together, like all the knives, arms, with the exception of this one, because you have to have the head on before you do the arms. It's how they recommend you do it. So that's the only one where you have to have extra bits off, but it's so easy to put them together and paint them. In terms of how I did it, it's a really simple scheme. The Death Hag sort of replicates it kind of just as easy. She's even easier to put together because you've just got to attach one arm, you've got to put her head together, and then you've got to sand her on a base. But how I did it, it's Kislev flesh, aka elf flesh, which I'm using for the skin, and then it's been washed with right gland flesh shade. Kieran recommended that as his flesh wash because that's what he uses for his corn, because I had a bit of an issue where they were super pale. Really bad, and I thought I need a wash for them, and he said get some flesh shade, and it does work a lot better. I do have the light on my camera, so that's maybe why they still look ridiculously pale, but I have got a flesh wash on them, otherwise they look really quite bad. They have simple red armor, which ties them into the rest of my Dark Elf army. I'll just go and grab one of my executioners so you can see. So I just put him there. You can see he's got red armor, purple robes. I mean, he's got green trim, but I might change that to blue trim at some point. And he's got a bit more purple than usual, but that's because these were the first Dark Elves I painted. But yeah, red armor is the main thing, and that's what I've done with them. And they would have more robes, but they're not wearing any, really. So anywhere there is a tabard, for example, on this girl on the far right has a purple tabard. The Death Hag has a purple robe. The standard is purple, just to tie them in. And this one is not wearing armor up there, so she's got cloth, which is why it's purple rather than red like the rest of the girls. In terms of anything else worthy of note, the hair is just simply Astronomicon grey, which I've then washed, or Administratum grey as I now use, which I then washed and then highlighted, so it's really simple. I also gave the Death Hag a red glaze on her head. The reasoning behind that is that this Death Hag, to make it this long in the Witch Elves, you've got to be pretty good at staying alive. and that means you've got to be a really, really damn good fighter. So she's been through so many fights that she cannot physically wash the blood she's been through out of her hair, or she took one too many baths in witch brew. Whichever. But she's got a red glaze on her hair for that reason. I may actually use hair glazing as a way of differentiating squads. So one squad of 10 may have blue glaze, one squad may have a green glaze, just to help me tell them apart. But by the same token, I want to be able to paint them into one huge horde if I get a lot of witch elves, so I may not do that after all. There's not much more I can say. The banner is just simply transfers. There's the same transfer on both sides. It is one of the symbols of Harganeth, which is from where the witch elves and co descend. And there's not much more I can really say. The only thing, as I said, is about variety. There are a couple of options. For example, the standard bearer has 2 knife options. There are 2 knives for this girl, 4 knives for this girl. You get 1 option for her, and she's kind of locked to, you have to change the faceplate because she can be your sergeant. I just wish there was a bit more variety, but I understand why there isn't. Plus, they had to fit the Sisters of Slaughter parts on there as well, who are actually quite good, but I just don't like the models. The only thing with the Death Hag, she's got this blue. I've decided that blue is going to be my spot colour. I'm going to use it for any tabard when I've got purple robes, any trim on plate mail, for example, if I redo my executioners. Just as a different tone, particularly ice blue really contrasts well with the red, and it still stands out against the pale flesh on witch elves, etc. Now, eagle-eye viewers will know that the Death Hag is sort of not a standalone model that I'm aware of anyway, so there is another kit to come, but we have one more model to show you before we get to that kit, so let's go and have a look at that right about now. The next model that I want to have a look at is a Blood Rat Medusa, which again is not a model you can buy independently. Grumble, grumble. It's a fantastic sculpt. I kind of like the Witch Elves. It's a really easy assemble. I think when GW redid the Dark Elf range, they really got the assembly right to make them look dynamic or imposing, but still be really easy to put together and paint. The Medusa I actually built first and then painted because I wasn't sure how long I was going to leave it before I painted her. So I built her first, and she was still pretty easy to paint. You just got to be careful with the staff that you don't get that covered in scaly paint. In terms of how she's painted, I was tempted at first to go with GW green, and then I changed my mind. I decided to go with purples and blues because it ties better into my army, particularly the blue highlight, which is now going to be my spot colour, and it's just something different. Originally I was going to go red with kind of like a bright green, like acid blood, but there's no reference to it in the lore, and while I think it would look cool, I didn't want to do it first time out. So plus she has red armor, same as the rest of my army, so I didn't really want to have too much red on her because she's always got blood and the armor plating. So maybe the next Medusa, if I get one off eBay or convert one from some Dark Eldar sliths, maybe I'll do it with something different, but that's how I've done my first one. There's not much more I can really say about her. I have got some Ard coat, so I'm tempted to put a bit of Ard coat over her blood because it is actually hers. That's hers. I have sort of painted that it could be her enemies, but I think in the lore it's hers. She is also painted with Kislev flesh, but I didn't do her with Reichland flesh shade. I didn't actually own it at the time. I only got it when I got my Witch Elves and then redid my Death Hag with it. So she has actually got a red glaze, same as the Death Hag's hair. My reasoning for that is that she bleeds a lot. And when she does damage to her opponents, they just explode in fountains of gore. So she's probably going to get covered in blood quite a lot. And kind of like with the Death Hag's hair, it's just soaked in and stained now. Or she's just barely had chance to wash it, not really had chance to wash it off because she's just been in the middle of a fight and it's just falling off of her, so she's still got this red glaze over her skin. I don't really know much more to say about her design-wise, but gameplay-wise, the Blood Rat Medusa is a lot of fun. I have played a game. I didn't get a chance to use the Witch Elves because I bought them on the day, but I did get a chance to use the Death Hag, the Medusa, and the kit that I'm going to show you after this. And the Medusa is actually pretty handy. Her shooting attack is a 10-inch range, and every single model in the unit rolls a d6, and on a 6, it takes a mortal wound. Now, this on its own is not that imposing, But if you can get multiple Medusa, each Medusa resolves that shooting attack on their own, meaning that if you have 3 Medusa in a unit and you look at a squad, that squad rolls 3d6 per model, and each 6 is a mortal wound, which is really, really nasty. And if you are sneaky and get your opponent to look you in the eye whilst you're getting your dice together before you roll anything, well, it's a 5+, and that means that 3d6 statistically will cause a mortal wound every time. This is particularly nasty on large infantry blocks. It's not that effective against characters, but against large infantry blocks of single wound models, such as Kieran's Khorne Blood Reavers, or something with good saves like... what am I thinking of? Something with good saves and 1 wound. I don't know, just anything that's large blocks, really, or that, or anything with good saves. It's just really, really nasty. Because I was talking to a Lizardmen player the other night, and he was saying that his army gets wrecked basically by mortal wounds because his armor's so good. So I'm thinking I'm going to have a fair few Medusae, and I'm also going to hopefully build an Exile Blood Cult around my Witch Elves, so as I can just pack in mortal wounds. The one issue is the only way to get the Medusa is through another kit, which I will be showing you in a minute. If she was sold independently, I would have 3. Absolutely. I mean, it's an awesome model. It's really imposing. I don't know how easy it would be to convert, but you do have some option to convert her, maybe by tilting the Spear or the Whisper Claw, or just doing something if you're skilled enough. Anyway, that is all for her. But while I'm talking about gameplay, let's just mention the Death Hag. Her abilities are pretty good. She can give herself damage D3, which she really kind of needs on a 3+, or she can do D3 mortal wounds 1/6 of the time on a 3+, which is kind of bad, and it's only got a 3-inch range. But if you do need to finish a unit of it, it's basically like having a possible arcane bolt just hidden away. She's not that hitty on her own, but she makes Witch Elves redonkulous. Witch Elves have 2 attacks each base, rerolling 1s to hit. And being within 14 inches of a Death Hag, or Crone Hellebron, who also has the Death Hag tag, gives them +1 attack, which means they have 3 each. And if you give them Witch Brew, which is carried by that Death Hag, which is what this little goblet is, she can make them reroll 1s to wound as well. Reroll 1s to wound and hit. And if you get a big squad, like 20 Witch Elves, you reroll everything to hit, which when you're hitting on 3s is really, really good. And I think large blocks of Witch Elves with a Death Hag or Hellebron behind them are just terrifying. Issue, they have no save. But there is a way around that, and we're going to have a look at it right about now. And the final model for today's showcase and update is a Cauldron of Blood, tended to by none other than Crone Hellebron herself. This kit is brilliant. Just so easy to put together. Again, like I said, when GW redid the range, they made the models look really dynamic and awesome, but still really easy to assemble and paint. I mean, Hellebron is not the best painted model I've ever done. She looks kind of bad because I didn't have my flesh wash, so I did a black wash the first time, and I haven't quite been able to highlight it out yet, and it's doing my nut in. But the Witch Elves on top look pretty good. It's the Cauldron itself that's the main focus, and the Khaine statue atop it. I just want to talk about the Khaine statue before we move on. This thing is done by GW as a stone effigy, and that's fine. But when I did it, I wanted it to look more like a physical manifestation of Khaine. So I've painted it with really deep red skin, which has then been heavily washed, wearing jet black armor with gold trim. It's just such an epic thing. Like, the thing is taller than the Cauldron. If I took it off the Cauldron, because I can, the thing's freaking huge. And the whole Cauldron itself, when you've got the statue on, stands over 8 inches tall, which is pretty awesome. Again, he's got that blue highlight for his top knot. And I just want to talk about the rune as well. I'll put the camera back down because I can use the Cauldron as an example. So you can see all these little runes that are inscribed into the stairs, and you may be thinking to yourself, well, how do you get your paintbrush in there? The answer is you don't. You can't get your paintbrush in there. There's no brush that thin. So my advice is, depending on your skill level, is to paint over the step, paint into the recess as best you can, and then either paint around it if you're precise enough, or just wipe over it with your finger or a piece of tissue, piece of tissue paper, not tissue paper, just something, just wipe it off, and you're left with the paint in the recesses. The ones on the steps are not my best, but the rune at the top of here and the rune on Khaine's head are a good example of how I actually use that technique. In terms of assembly, this is a pretty easy assemble, but you do just have to worry about how you're going to paint it. So when I did it, I painted as I went. I think I can turn this just so I can show you. Sorry, witch elves, get out of the way. So you can see there's quite a bit of intricate detail inside, and there's no way you'd be able to paint it if you assemble it all in one go. So I did it as kind of like sub-assemblies, but instead of having individual elements, I just painted them as I added them on. So I built this central column and painted it. I then added the main axle with the statue and painted it, but not the cauldron. I then added the spikes and braziers, painted those. Painted the wheel elements separately and then added those. That wheel is actually a bit wonky, but it sticks, so it's fine. The stair supports and the top stairs I did together, because if you don't, you have a bit of an issue. Oh, one of my blades has snapped off. That's disappointing. And then you had the bottom steps and the snake elements at the bottom here. Paint those. You can do the statue at any time, and then you add the crew and the cauldron to finish it off. And it's a really, really simple process. It only took me 2 days, I think, to get this thing done, because I bought it on the Sunday and then I had it packed into my box ready for a game on the Tuesday. I'm just going to try and rearrange these witch elves while I talk. So it is a really, really easy kit to put together and to paint, even if you are busy. Like, I've had exams and I'm still finding time to do this as sort of my downtime. So it's not a laborious process at all. Hang on, just 1 second. There we go. Right. In terms of gameplay, we've sort of talked about painting now. I think we've just about covered everything. Again, with Hellebron, you can see I've got that blue highlight going on. The purple is the first colour I use, and then the blue is for any extra clothing. And the only other thing is the Death Hag and Hellebron and the crew, they say you can sort of put them wherever, or in various positions is how they directly quote it. This is true-ish. Hellebron has high heels, which makes it very difficult for her to stand on this step because it gets narrower. You can't stand her on the edge because you're only going to have her heels keeping her in place. You could put her on the back or the front of the cauldron, kind of like GW's model does, but that raises a transport issue, kind of like with this blade, because this thing's quite pointy and tall. It can snap, and I didn't want that to happen. As a result, my Khaine statue is blue tacked, and Hellebron is down there. Now, you may be wondering how the hell did I get her down there if she won't fit up there? Brute force, if I'm honest. So I got her right foot into place, glued it, and then pushed her left leg in until it dropped, and then glued that down. And it works as well. It suits me because she doesn't have witch brew, so she doesn't need to be up on that cauldron at all. She can just be getting down and getting stuck in like any good witch elf. The guards have to go on those sides, but I guess they do have some flexibility in positioning. I put them quite high just because Hellebron was so low. If I was having her on top, I would probably put the witch elves quite low. The other option is to do it as a Bloodwrack Shrine and have the Medusa stood in here. That's another viable option. I just think the Cauldron of Blood has more gameplay viability, personally. It certainly has more synergy. So what the Cauldron does in terms of gameplay is it gives all witch elves within initially 9 inches a 5+ ward save. So they get a 5+ save after saves. So if you have a save already, you take your save, and then you get a 5+ save after that. And that applies to everything with the witch elf tag, which is in itself, Hellebron if she's on foot, the Death Hag, witch elves. It's just really useful if you're running a witch elf themed army to protect them with this blood shield, because witch elves have no saves, as I mentioned earlier. It also allows you to give a friendly unit +1 to wound in the combat phase, which is really nice on something like anything that's doing mortal wounds on a 6 in combat. There is a formation. It's called the Exile Blood Cult, and it's what I'm working towards. It's a Death Hag or Cauldron, so I'm going to have the Cauldron, plus 3 squads of Witch Elves and a squad of Hargoneth Executioners. And they all get 6s to wound, do a mortal wound. Now, if you give a unit +1 to wound, the way I read it is that 5s become 6s, because it's 6 or more causes mortal wound. So 6 becomes 7, 5 becomes 6, and so you do a mortal wound on a 5+, which is really quite nasty. And there's another buff that's for the formation. If you take a unit out, everything gets bigger buffs, so it can be really nasty if you can get it to combo together. Hellebron's command ability also, by the way, is ridiculous. She allows a unit to pile in and attack twice. Not just attack, but actually pile in twice. So if they do take out half a unit and half the unit is now no longer engaged, it can then just pile in again. It's not like jump the queue pile in twice. It's attack, opponent attacks, and then you can pick that unit again when your pick comes back around. Which, if you put it on a unit that needs the charge, is disgusting. I put it on Cauldron Knights, and having 2 bites of the cherry at wounds on 3s damage 2 with Cauldron Knights is so good. It's just ridiculous. Combine that with the Cauldron's ability to give +1 to wound. I didn't actually get it off. It's only on a 2+, so I actually got zapped and took a mortal wound instead. But if they were wounding on 2s, it would have been even better for me. Not that it mattered, they did actually wipe their target out, thanks to a Battle Standard Bearer giving them rerolls of 1 to wound as well, which is pretty damn good. So the Cauldron is really good at providing synergy and protection for predominantly Witch Elves, but also for your army. Hellebron, I debated making Hellebron and the Death Hag interchangeable. I really, really did. But I feel like Hellebron is far better suited on the Cauldron, because the Death Hag can then be more mobile to dish out her Witch Brew with a move of 7 as opposed to 6. And I think Hellebron is just more survivable of it. The 2 prayers that Hellebron has on foot either increase her save or do a bravery debuff. You don't get them when you're on the Cauldron, but I can live without it. The only thing I will say to any Dark Elf player who wants to run a Cauldron is give it Mystic Shield every single turn. This thing has 13 wounds, which is good on paper, a 5+ armor save, and then this 5+ blood shield save. But your opponent will know that it's basically what's keeping your army going, and so will target it with every gun they've got, meaning that 5+ save is generally not a 5+ save. So you need to give it Mystic Shield. This will help keep it alive. I was fighting an all Illyrian Reaver High Elf army in the game that I played with the Medusa and all this stuff, and he shot about 5 wounds off my Cauldron in 1 turn. I mean, it was Illyrian Reavers who got really good shooting, but it made me realize that Mystic Shield is actually kind of useful on this thing, and you don't have a caster on it. You have a priest and a totem, but you don't have a magic, which is good because it can't be unbound, the blessings that it gives out, but at the same time, you do need to buff it. There's not much more I can say, really. I'm yet to use the Witch Elves, so I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform alongside the Cauldron and the Death Hag. But I think you need a lot of Witch Elves to make it work particularly well, just because you need them to stay alive long enough, and you know your opponent's going to shoot them with everything he's got if he can, because they're disgusting. So, future plans. Let's discuss that. So, my first job is to obviously finish off this Witch Elf squad, get them up to 10. That's the most important job. Once that's done, I'm good to go. I don't have to do it right now, but I want to get it done. After that, I'm going to invest in some either Bleak Swords, which are Dark Elf Infantry, or some Executioners, or some more Witch Elves. I haven't quite decided yet. If I go with Dark at all. If I go high, I'll get a Lothern Skycutter. So I've got 4 options at the moment. Let me know what you think I should get next in the comments below. I've got 5 Executioners already, but having another 10 basically gives me enough punch in that unit that I never need to buy anything for it again, or buff it in any way, because it's just so nasty, and it will make the Blood Cult better. But I need basic infantry. I feel like having basic infantry is kind of a must these days, just to give you enough models on the table to stay alive and not lose automatically. If I do go high, though, as I say, Lothern Skycutter. It's something I need to do. I feel like having a proper sea helm with a banner, or just having the Skycutter, it's a pretty damn model. And then once that's all done, like I've got some more Executioners, I've got enough Witch Elves to fill the Blood Cults. That's going to be 2 more boxes. I'll probably look at some more Cauldron Knights, or some Dart Riders to round out another Exiles formation, because I need Dart Riders to use it. And yeah, we'll just have to see where it goes. Let me know what you think I should do in the comments below. Leave me some ideas. maybe have a comment on the paint scheme, because obviously I know it's a bit rough in places, like particularly Hellebron, but I'm quite happy with how they look right now. So that's all for today. I do hope you have enjoyed this first episode in my Aelfen adventure. Please, as well, somebody come up with a better title. I beg you. I am begging you to come up with a better title. I don't want to keep saying that. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is. Leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I would really appreciate it. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and until next time, I will see you all again. Bye for now.